Hey, Leon. Okay, I think we are live. Let's give maybe a couple of minutes for folks to join, and then we'll kick it off. So, Iliang, have you been using ChatGPT a lot?
Yeah, more and more over the days, right? Recently, I bought a dog, right? So I have a new uh, furry friend, and I'm completely lost at what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So having a helper, right? I mean, it's sort of like a vet, but maybe not as not so much, does not have so much expertise, right? But it's still good to have someone to talk to. Sometimes I don't even know how to phrase my questions properly, right? And chat GPT just works magic on turning my very blunt questions, right, into things that make sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think I use it every day. I can even say even every hour of the day. Yeah, but Iliang, since I asked you that question, why don't I ask question of the audience to folks? If you're tuned in, just let us know how you're using ChatGPT today, or any other AI product for that matter. But for your personal, like in your personal work, rather than for any kind of company-wide automation or integration. It'd be interesting to hear your ideas too. Uh, so while we wait for folks to respond, thank you again for joining us this morning, evening, afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're in. Uh, like everybody is talking about AI, and especially Gen AI, and we kicked off this series, like as Iliang and I were chatting about earlier today. Like even though each of us individually uses ChatGPT or some product similar to that, to whether it be for content generation, text or images or so on, uh, applying it to our work, like to benefit our teams, companies, and so on, that's less prevalent. People are still trying to find their ways where it would make most impact and so on. And we created this series, like AI² Workjams, and AI² stands for automation integration. If you multiply that with AI, that's essentially what an AI² is about. Like, how do you combine the power of automation integration and AI to really have a 10x impact on the efficiency, productivity, and growth side of things in your companies. And today, we kicked it off last month, and today we'll talk about the quality at speed. Like, how do you completely boost up your recruiting process using AI to power faster and fairer recruitment? The fairer part is also important. So today I'm joined by Iliang, who's a senior product manager at Workato and a Jedi when it comes to building automations, and dabbling with AI. Soon he'll be a Jedi in that too. So Iliang, a quick intro.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Iliang. I've been here at Workato for a couple of years now, right? So, working with tech, right, just became a whole new thing, right, when AI stepped on the scene earlier this year, right? So but to me, working with AI is just about how can we harvest, right, this power of large language models, of thinking, having a conversational partner, right, and to help us do our work better, right? But in the end, it's about creating positive experiences for our customer, in whatever domain that is we are working on.
Okay. The next slide, Iliang, we can go.
All right. Let's see.
So, folks, again, we'll publish this in our like Workato events page on LinkedIn, and we're trying to make it a monthly event, so you can join in at 10 a.m. Pacific. Of course, the recordings will be available, and keep it interactive. Please ask questions at any point. share your ideas. Anything else that you'd like to see, we'll try to bring that in our next iteration. So the more questions, the better. So before we dive in, we have a demo that we'll show. Iliang has put something really nifty together for today. But it would be also good to know like where you are in your journey with Gen AI. Like, are you like watching it from the sidelines, dabbling with it, or actively integrating? If you're actively integrating Gen AI, please share where you're using it, where you have seen impact, so others can learn from it too. Is security a big concern for you? Is that what's holding you back in your organization? If that is, what kind of security concerns should be alleviated? Please share those. And if you're unsure where to get value, hopefully this session brings some ideas how to think about value. So, please respond to that. It's a live conversation, so we'll keep going. And then the second part, like it's important for us to know, which is what's your interest in these types of sessions? Is it primarily around learning about the art of the possible with Gen AI? Or how to use? It's essentially like the technical know-how, like what would be, what does it take to work with technologies like OpenAI, Amazon Bedrock, or Google Vertex, or other? Or are you specifically like in recruiting in HR that you care about how to improve the recruiting process, or any other? So please post answer to those questions at any point. But for today's topic, yes, we are in an economic climate where hiring and other things may not be as rampant as it was maybe 2 years ago. But hiring is still the most important function any company has. People matter. People is what builds companies, products, and so on. And it all starts with the hiring process, the recruitment side of things. And as we looked around, like where can AI and automation play a role, even within the recruitment process, these are just a few that are highlighted. By no means these are exhaustive. Like from screening of resumes to finding the best talent faster, to sourcing candidates, to generating personalized responses when you like a candidate or you don't find them a fit. When you get like, how do you collect and analyze candidate feedback? How do you score candidates? And this is important. It's not just for the recruit, like the pipeline management, but you can score candidates and store them in a repository in your company for later use as well, right? And creating job postings and publishing them. All these are good examples where the combination of AI and automation can help. And today we don't have time to dive into all 10 of these, so we'll pick the big ones. And the reason I say big one, we're looking at the data. We can go to the next one, Ilya. We're looking at the data, like what matters, like what's the trend in the market, like as far as HR and employee experience is concerned. And as you can see, there are various things HR teams are trying to solve for over the years. But the one that has shot up is like it's about finding the best talent, winning the race for skills, right? And that's what we will focus on in our demo today. And it all starts with like one is sourcing, of course, but once you've sourced, then you've got a pipeline of resumes for your recruiting team. How do you find the talent from like 500 or 1,000 job applications, depending on the size of the company and the job that is? How do you find the best talent faster? Let's go to the next one, Ilya. And traditionally, and every company has different ways of orchestrating this process. But the most common way that you'd find in companies, you will have an applicant tracking system, whether it be Greenhouse, Taleo, ICIMS or other. And once the candidate submits the resume, you have a small pool of recruiters that are looking at hundreds of applications for the same job, and they don't have the bandwidth to respond to these applications in real time. So it's in their backlog. It often takes them a few days to get to a job applicant, and then they have to manually classify, qualify, and prioritize those candidates for the hiring manager. And that this whole process takes about a few days. And then the hiring manager gets notified, and then the hiring manager can approve or reject. And the email that the candidate often gets, let's face it, most of these are canned responses. There's no candidness in those responses, like why a candidate was not a fit for a role and such. And it doesn't give candidates a good sense of why they were not a fit, or if this job was not right for them. More importantly as well, like internally, if a candidate or a resume applicant was not found a fit, that information can also be used as a feedback to improve the qualification process. But all of this is missed because most of these things happen is very, very manual and non-digital, if I may put it that way. So we can go to the next one. And let's anything that's manual, these are the typical downsides to manual processes. The response times for candidates are slow. Cost of hiring increases because more people are involved, more time is involved. The pipeline conversion is also poor. So you're losing candidates because you're slow to respond, and competitors are grabbing the best talent. And finally, every candidate wants to be treated with respect and valued. And in absence of faster response time or candid feedback, oftentimes this results in poor candidate NPS. Next one. So, Iliang, I understand you have a solution for this. So why don't we dive in?
All right. So, candidate screening is a whole big process, right? We've sort of mapped out this 7 or 8 step flow. But if we just want to take a look at what is the core part where it takes the most time, takes the most human effort, right? It's really to create a hiring criteria, right? And for most recruiters, right, they source from 2 different places, right? Their inspiration for how they create that hiring rubric, right? The first one is on the right-hand side, right? It's pretty simple, it's very precise, right? You are talking about exact skill sets, exact experiences. For example, this person must be able to lead a Scrum team, right? Or something very objective, like 10 or more years of experience in a certain thing, like web development, right? The recruiter can also make calibration calls, right, with the hiring manager to talk about what sort of traits do they see or do they want in the candidate. So, for example, they want someone who is growing, right? Someone who is very passionate about what they do. They want to grow and go from junior to senior to something else, right? They maybe want someone who is committed, who stays at a company for maybe more than 2 years, right? And I think this is a very important one, which is we are talking about hiring for we're talking about hiring for roles, right, that we want to have a very good fit. And the best way to find that, right, is to find very similar companies to yours, right? So in this case, maybe we are looking for a more modern, enterprisey, very SaaS company, right? They move fast, right? They are agile, right? So whoever comes from those types of companies would probably be a good fit. Right. So if we just take that hiring criteria part and fit it into the overall workflow, right? What we see that AI or the AI recruiter can do for us, right, is they can build these qualifying criteria, right? And this is going to be unique for every single job description, every single role that you're trying to hire for, right? Compare it, right, with every applicant that comes in. And I know we are talking about volumes of hundreds to thousands, right? So it can help us to extract and analyze, right? Pick out what is most important to the position that they're applying for, right? And the final part is to score and rank, right? So ultimately what we get at the end of the day, right, is a very objective, very systematic process, right? Where we filter out the best of the best, right? and put them in front of a human reviewer, right? So that's not to say, this is entire process is automated, right? But what we're doing is filtering, putting the most important responses up there. And then I also want to call your attention to the thing on the bottom right? So, after the hiring manager takes a look at this screen resumes, right? Maybe they approve, maybe they reject, right? But what we get with ChatGPT or any large language model is the ability to create personalized messages, right? So if they excel at a certain skill set, right, or if they are lacking or there's not a very good fit in one of these criteria, right, we are able to bring that up, right, and give very personal feedback, right? So, that's a whole lot of theory, but let's just jump into the demo, right? So first, let's just take a look at what a simple JD might look like, right? So this is a JD that you can get from any hiring manager, right? So we can see, there's some things about the responsibilities, right? What they are expected to do on a day-to-day basis, right? There's some sort of qualifications that they must have, right? So in this case, we are looking for 10 or more years in web development, right? And then as you make those kind of calibration calls with your hiring manager, again, these are things that you can bring up. Maybe they want someone who is, of a certain style. Now, knowing that this is the position, let's take a look at one of the resumes that you might see. So in this case, we're looking at Jane Forrester, right? This person has an extensive experience at being a senior software engineer, right? So some things that we can point out immediately, right, is that over here, this person has been an engineer for very, very long. So in terms of just pure experience, right, I think this person might fit the bill. But if we take a look at the other sort of criteria that the hiring manager raised, right, which is I prefer someone who is in a more modern, sassy company, right, then perhaps in this case, this particular company that this candidate is in might not fit the bill, right? So let's see how it works in action. I'm just going to go over to my Slack here, right? And then we can see that I have a new message, right, which comes in as a triggered event, right, from a new applicant for a new application to our senior software engineer role, right? And we see that the candidate here is Jane Forrester, right? So off the top, right, we have this score, which is the candidate score that lets us know, there's an overall, 76% fit, right, between what the job is asking for and, what the candidate has to offer, what we managed to glean from their resume, right? And in certain cases, right, if the number is super low, right, like 40 or 50%, right, then the decision is very easy, right? Or if the score is very, very high, like 99%, right, then again, that decision is very easy. But often a case, right, we don't want to make a decision just based on a number. So in this case, we can take a look at the recommendation, right, that was generated by this AI workflow. So in this case, we can read, right, the candidate, it's not a good fit, right? It has over 10 years of software development experience, but she has only been in a data company, right? It doesn't fit this modern SaaS company profile that the hiring manager is asking for, right? And again, right, if this is not enough to make an informed decision, there is more, right? So if we take a look at this scorecard that we can create, right? So for every single JD, right, we can create this criteria that says this company match must be in a certain profile, right? So in this case, the company match is pretty low, right? That it is indeed a big company, right, but it's not modern, right? It doesn't fit the company profile that we are looking for. We can see, the company match is low, right? But in terms of skill sets, right, there's more than 10 years of web application development experience. So, there are certain criteria that it hits and certain criteria that it misses, right? At the end of the day, if we look at all the sort of requirements for the job we can scroll down the list and make that decision for ourselves, right? So at the end of the day, right, we have a candidate that comes in, it's been sort of filtered and screened, right? It has been processed by this AI workflow. The decision is still up to the recruiter, right? Do you want to accept this or do you want to reject this this candidate, right? And in this case, perhaps being in a different company, not meeting the company profile, right? it's such a huge blocker, right, that the hiring manager has stress. So just based on that one criteria alone, we might say, let's reject this candidate, right? And what is cool about this AI workflow, right, is that we can, generate this sort of replies, right, that says, you have chosen to reject this candidate for this role, right? So here's a draft email that you can send, right, to let this candidate know where they might be lacking, where they might not be a very good fit with the role, right? And if we read here, right, it's very, very personal. It's tailored, right, to what is shown on the resume and what is required of the job that they're applying for, right? So it's not that kind of canned response. There's a meaning to it, right? And this is something that we can do with the AI workflow, right? So let's quickly jump back to the slides and talk about certain key elements that we have shown here. All right. So first off, right, we are generating, we are looking at each resume and picking out the key points, right? So things like the average tenure, right? Be it ChatGPT or other sort of large language models, right? They're able to read what is in the resume, right, and reason out things like they have been in this job for this time and this, and then look through the several experiences, right, and generate things like, okay, this person has an average tenure. You can look through the skill sets, right, to figure out what skills they've demonstrated, right? Years of experience, core skills, certifications, right? All of these things large language models are able to pass through. And then the other thing, right, is that it's able to give a unique scorecard, right, for every job posting and compare it with the applicant, right? So in this case, maybe it can say, the skills match is very, very high, right? There's over 10 years of experience, right? That's exactly what the job description is asking for. That's exactly what the resume has shown, right? But perhaps when we go down, the company match might not be that high, right? Just because it doesn't fit that company profile, right? And again, and I want to emphasize again here, right, that this is going to be unique for every single job posting and every single candidate, right? You are doing is essentially what the recruiter would do, right? But at a fraction of the time, at a fraction of the cost, right? So at the end of the day, all we get here, right, is we are aiming to have to speed up the process, right? We are hiring faster, we're hiring for cheaper, right? That translates to higher productivity, right? And speed is one thing, right? But having personalized responses and feedback throughout the process, right, that will improve the candidate experience at the end of the day.
Okay.
Really, you wanna?
Yeah, Eliang, great demo, and I know there's a lot to show behind the scene, but we can go to the next one. And we're doing some call it a back of the envelope calculation, like for our recruiting team, and we're looking like if you're hiring like around 100 new hires every year, like on an average, those have over like 500 applications per job posting. And I was talking to the recruiter, like how long does it take to process? And on an average, it takes them maybe about 12, 13 minutes to cycle through, go to greenhouse, open things, review it, make notes, and then move on to the next stage. So if you think about this, like based on what Eliang just shared, that whole thing automated can save us, like with that kind of scale, like over 11,000 hours, and that's not an insignificant amount for a company our size or any size for that matter. More importantly, we are able to get to the candidates that matter, the talent that matters the most faster, and give them a great experience, right? So just something to think about, like how to measure the impact and how to identify opportunities where AI and automation can help you. Eliang, there's some questions, of course, like, you showed the demo. Yeah, if you have 50K new hires per week, you should definitely explore that path, how it works. it will definitely, your recruiting team will thank you at that scale. And especially if you're 50K new hires for that size of company, it will be like maybe 2,000 applications for job ID instead of 500 or so. So really good candidate for AI on automation. So Elian, can we go into, one part is the solution looks that like that. What does it take, like in terms of a configuration standpoint, what does it take to build something like this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And in fact, I'm happy to share that it doesn't take a whole lot, right, to create this workflow, right? So what I'm showing here is the Workato recipe, right? And if you're familiar with recipes, right, there is a trigger, right, which says, okay, what event are we gonna work off? And in this case, we are working off new applicants, right? The applicant tracking system we are using here is Greenhouse, but it works just as well for any of your other systems, right? So in this case, it's just a couple of steps, right? It's just saying, let's retrieve all the details that we have. Get me the JD, get me the resume, right, and all the other details. Send it over to ChatGPT, right? And I'll go into detail about what some of these sort of configurations are. But essentially, we just send it over to ChatGPT to generate a unique scorecard for every single job, right? And after we get the job fit scorecard, we grade it. We grade each candidate, right? And we give them a score. Again, right? That's where we compare the job description, scorecard, and the resume of the candidate, right? And then that's it, right? The last step here is just saying, okay, I want to make this accessible for our recruiters on this Slack application, right? And again, you can swap it out with Teams, you can swap it out with any sort of workflow, user-facing kind of application. Now the question comes in, what are all these configurations here, right? What is this system role message? What are these things here? Let me show you, right? So we can start off here, right? So just imagine, you have tons of job descriptions, right? So in this case, this is just a sort of table way of saying, okay, these are all the job description in text form, right? These are the notes that I've taken as I've made that calibration call with the hiring manager, right? So you can see things like, I prefer someone who has growth in their career, someone who has an average tenure of like X years, right? And of course, you can add in any other sort of fields that if you want, right? Like linking to your applicant tracking system, right? But your job description can stay here. It's very easy to edit, right? So you can just come in here, and then if you want to add something else, right, then that's pretty simple to add in, right? So maybe we can just say I would prefer if they're based in the Bay Area, right? That's pretty easy to add in, right? So that's the first part. That's where all your job descriptions or your sort of hiring notes lie. The second part is the job fit requirements, right? So in this case, I've set it up such that I'm looking at this 7 or 8 criteria, right? And they're all weighted in a certain way, right? I'm not saying, they're all equally weighted, right? I care maybe a bit more about having a skills match and a role match, right? And maybe not so much on the compensation match. It does factor into the sort of final equation or final formulation, right? But really what we want to see is, does this person have the skills to perform at this job? Does this person have the role and the experience of doing whatever, this new position is doing, right? So you can easily come in here, right, and say, maybe I want to sort of toggle, right? I want to change the weights of something here, right? I can just go inside and say, okay, maybe I want to raise skills up a little bit more. So let's change that to 35%, right? And maybe I just want to decrease the company match just a little bit, right? So let's change it down to 10%, right? And that, right, what we've changed here, right, would mean that any other sort of events that happen for the next applicant, right, that scorecard would have changed, right? So it's very easy to customize and to create a new scorecard. And then the last thing that I want to show you, right, is going back to the recipe and the part where I said, oh, what are these systems roles and what are all this prompt engineering stuff? So for those who are familiar working with ChatGPT, prompt engineering, right, it's just a simple way of giving instructions, right, to the large language model for them to help you work better, right? So the more elaborate, more precise, and full of examples your prompt engineering is, the more accurate your answers are going to be. So let me just show you. So what we're looking at here is the sort of project settings, right? And this is where we can create project level properties, right, that can be shared within this project. And Workato works off projects because perhaps you can have 10 different sort of AI workflows here, right? And then what we want to create settings for are those for the AI recruitment workflow, right? So if we just quickly take a look here and jump straight to this one, ChatGPT system role, right? So in this case, we are defining what ChatGPT is supposed to do for us, right? In this case, this is a recruitment assistant, right? It's here to help us to optimize, to speed up the process of distilling job description, right? So it's all about qualifying, extracting, and stuff like that, right? And if we take a look at this little bit here, right, the instructions given to ChatGPT here is, I have a job description, right, taken from my HR, right, and I have a list of qualifying criteria, right? They must have a skills match, they must have a company match, right? And based on that, I want you to create a unique job fit criteria, right, for this JD. And then the last part is given the here, given the job fit scorecard that you've created for me, right, I want you to then now compare it against this resume, right? So it's a very simple linear process, right, of saying, okay, first, I'll give you the job description, give me back a job fit scorecard, and then with this scorecard that you've given me, right, compare and use it to grade this candidate that I have, right? So again, you can come in here, you can edit, right? You can change and toggle, you can play around with what works best for your use case, right? And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's a very simple linear kind of recipe, minimal steps, right? There's a trigger that comes from your applicant tracking system, right? Then you just send it, create some sort of steps with your large language model, and that's it, right?
Ilian, you definitely make it sound easy and look easy. And folks, the a few things to call out. So Pascal, you asked the question about the job fit scorecard. Ilian just walked through the demo how you take the job description, the criteria, the hiring manager calibration as a criteria, and you can put the weightage around that based on what is relevant for your company. And the important thing is it's completely customizable based on your hiring policies. Like for example, you may be a remote only company and remote hires are important. You may be a return to office kind of company, and that matters to you. And those things you can provide additional weightage for. And the way this automation is set up, the calibration, like as in this, the rules engine to determine the fit score, it's completely configurable. So over time, as you hire candidates and you recalibrate what the needs are, all you need to do is change the score, not change the actual recipe, the automation that runs, right? And this is, the recruiter can do this like as they would work in a spreadsheet. It's that kind of experience. And the second part to call out, like if you look at, there was a question around, does this, like how do you avoid biases that AI may have, AI, LLM, and they might have not been trained on the right set of data. So the way to look at this, anything that included here is very deterministic. There's no name, there's no PII information, there's no demographic information. It's strictly based on skills and what the hiring manager is expecting. So and then finally, what we are trying to do here is accelerate the decision making process for recruiting, not replace the human involvement in that. At the end of the day, there's still a human involved in reviewing the recommendation and taking action. It's not the AI that's making the decision. So super important to remember that. And there was another question around like can candidates game this system? Like there's an AI that's evaluating this. Can candidates create resumes that fit this core. That's going to happen. Like if AI is going to screen resumes, candidates are going to create resumes with that are tailored for a particular job. But there are certain things, for example, the tenure in the company information, which cannot be tailored. They can tailor the content of their resumes, but like which companies they worked at, how long they worked at, their growth trajectory, and those things are completely can be validated with a third-party service like LinkedIn. So those things still matter, but it's absolutely like candidates should and must use AI to make their resumes much more attractive for recruiters. That's just going to happen. So if your question was, can AI fool another AI? Those attempts will be made, but there will be checks and balances to prevent that. So Iliang, we can thank you so much for sharing the demo. We can just go to the, so folks, the other part is like, this is just one of the examples that we looked at just in recruiting. But if you go to the next slide, Iliang, across your company, like whether it be finance, HR, IT, marketing, sales, customer support, product engineering, across every business function, there are plenty of opportunities to use the power of AI and automation. So we encourage you to, somebody said they're experimenting theory, please experiment, try things out, find where the value is, and use tools like Workato, OpenAI to get you there faster. The more you iterate, the more you learn, the faster you'll find where the impact and value is. Next one, Iliang. And like with Workato, we are making these technologies like OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, and other providers of LLMs accessible through a very user-friendly interface, rather than having to work with the raw APIs that these technologies provide. Iliang just showed you a demo, so we encourage you to try that with Workato if you haven't already. That would be all, folks, for today. Of course, with all these things, we want to keep it secure, safe, like especially it's data that your company data, your employee data, customer data that passes through. And there's plenty of built-in security and governance models within Workato that enable you to take control of your data. So thanks, Iliang, for staying up late. And I know recruiting is one of the most exciting things you care about. So thanks for putting together the demo. It's been fun bringing these kind of use cases to you, and share your feedback, ideas. We'll come back in another month and talk to you again.
All right. Happy to be here and share.